Hey, good people. So I always start this by saying I'm not going to be on here long, and then guess what? I'll be on here long. So I'm not going to say that today, right? What I am going to say is I think that it's really, really important that we stay updated on what is happening. And I'm just trying to find some notes because it's really important. Um, it's really important that we get facts straight around quite a few things. So, um, let me first introduce myself in case this is your first time catching me live. My name is Casey Denning. I am co founder and executive director of Helping Empower Youth, which is an Atlanta based IRS recognized 501c3. We are a nonprofit in Atlanta. As I stated, we're Atlanta based. We work primarily on the west side of Atlanta, where the demographics still show that the families, the students, the young people that we serve are at or below the poverty line at the greatest number in the city of Atlanta. And all the implications that come with that, right? Around um, arrest uh, data and statistics, high school graduation rates, poverty, employment, affordable housing, right? So those are the things that we deal with a lot. Let me just jump right on into this. So one of the things that I do want you to be aware of is that today, this morning, the House was able to pass a bill, and it still has to go under review on a couple of other layers if you understand the process of passing bills that will essentially cut $880 billion to the Committee on Health that essentially makes the decisions around Medicaid. Short version, they're looking to cut Medicaid. Then there's another 230 um, billion dollars that will be cut from the agriculture department that manages food stamps. So I am very mindful that there are a lot of folks who want to say that, oh, well, see, this is a prime example of how this is not a race thing. Everything in this country is race. We can argue it or not, because I'm not going to argue it with you. Everything in this country is about race. In addition to that, everything in this country has more glaringly become about class. And so some Republicans, because in the bill passage today, um, and I'm just giving information, right? I understand that we're a nonprofit, so this is just facts. Um, Only one Republican held out and said, no, this is ludicrous. And all the Democrats said no to it. But Republicans run the House, so the bill was able to be passed. And so, again, it has to go through a couple of other iterations, a couple of other edits. But essentially, Medicaid, which is how most people who are at or below the poverty line, working class folks, even some middle class folks, honestly, utilize Medicaid to help take care of the health concerns of their families and their children. And so those are going to be drastically cut. One of the things in Medicaid that is going to be cut, if you dig down into it, is the ability to have mental health support, psychiatric supports as well, right? So folks who legitimately need Medicaid, not just for their physical health, but for their mental health too, all of those things are going to be cut. You can say with, never mind. Again, we're a nonprofit. Let me stay on track. Okay, so that's the facts, right? And then $230 billion to be cut in food stamps, essentially. All right. So there are your updates there. I'm on TikTok for now. I got a little series over there. I haven't named it yet. So if y'all got a little catchy name for me where I kind of get into the nitty gritty of a lot of these executive orders, um, then follow me. I am Casey Venning on TikTok. Look, what hits home for Helping Empower Youth today? On February 7th, there was an executive order that went out that basically said that let me because I want to make sure I'm reading verbatim. February 7th, if you go to whitehouse.gov/presidential actions, right? Protecting Second Amendment rights, executive order. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. Section 1 purpose. The Second Amendment is an indispensable safeguard of security and liberty. It has preserved the right of the American people to protect ourselves, our families, and our freedoms since the founding of our great nation, because it is foundational to maintaining all other rights held by Americans. The right to keep and bear arms must not be infringed. Now, you're probably thinking, Casey, why under your hat and your role as co-founder and executive director of Helping Empower Youth are you talking about an executive order around protecting the Second Amendment rights? I'm glad you asked. Here's the short version of it. Organizations that serve a particular population of folks who may or may not have engaged in violent behavior, that may or may not have included a weapon, is seen as violence intervention, violence prevention. Prior to the February 7th executive order, the Office of Violence Prevention was shut completely down by this current administration, which means colleagues, those who are fighting a good fight in the field alongside of us here at Hay, had direct federal funding at almost about 90% from the federal government that came through the Office of Violence Prevention. That money was immediately cut. Okay, Casey, y'all don't receive federal dollars. How does that implicate or apply to you? Well, organizations that have any language that has been brought to public attention of reducing violence and crime may or may not have been receiving letters stating that their 501c3 status is going to be revoked, because essentially the acts of reducing violence are violating the Second Amendment. Meaning, let's make this very plain, the fact that we are telling Black boys, in our case, that guns don't necessarily have to be the way that you resolve your conflicts is seen as violating the Second Amendment. Now, for me, and I hate the analogy of apples and oranges, but this time it fits. Me and Coach Boyd and whomever else telling a young person, shooting someone because they scuffed up your shoe, shooting somebody even because they called your mama out her name, it's not justifiable. It's very different than us telling someone of legal age, do what's necessary to legally own a weapon if that is what you choose to do. I don't see how those two things work together. The fact that we're telling young people that guns don't need to be your first result in absolving conflict between you and another human being construed and misconstrued at that by our federal government as violating Second Amendment rights is indicative of the intelligence that people are engaging in these offices. So with that, it is highly imperative and very important that we are mindful of how we're navigating this treacherous terrain in this time. And we're working with attorneys on the back end to ensure that we are protected and that our young people are protected too. But it is like the Wild Wild West out here in more ways than one. And I want us all to just be very mindful that if we never paid attention to what has been happening on a political sphere before, we need to pay attention now, because more than ever, what is happening from a federal standpoint is impacting our lives on a local level in ways that we have never seen in this country before. The adage of all politics are local doesn't just fit anymore in this season, because local agencies, governments, entities are being threatened and feeling threatened. And yesterday I sat in a space and someone told us, and they were right in saying that we need to be very mindful of the shock and awe. That a lot of this is just to rattle us, right? That if we live in this perpetual state of fear, then we kind of contribute to our own demise. And I completely agree with that. But some of this isn't just shock and awe. Some of this has very real implications for those of us who work with some of the most vulnerable in our communities. And so please read, please pay attention, do not ignore, govern yourselves accordingly, right? We don't need to consume news all day long. It is not good for our mental health. And because Medicaid is about to be cut and we can't go get mental health anyway, then we have to be even more diligent and mindful about how we keep our cool and our sanity. So just wanted to keep you updated and let you all know that there are some orders that even if you're not receiving federal funding, you're being impacted, right? Another one is for those of you, and I think I mentioned this, and if I did before, then just take it again. Those of you who may be on, and I'm one of those, on an income driven repayment plan for your federal student loans, that opportunity has been taken down off of the federal student aid website. So again, everything is not going to be publicized. And there are very small things that are happening that impact the working class, those who are at or below the poverty line. And this gap between the wealthy and the poor is increasing every single day. And so if we're not being mindful, we need to be. It's not a time for us to be scared. It's for us to put some things into action. So here's just some good advice, right? One, save and invest. Like, I know folks are on this boycott tip, and maybe it's just really good timing. So even if you don't have a personal or political or communal responsibility to boycotting, then just choose to not excessively spend, because having access to money quick and fast is going to be important. Investing that money, this is the time that is ripe to make money in the stock market. Let's just take the political stuff aside and look at the economic portion of it. If you got a couple of ducats, you may want to start investing now. Start growing your own food. Like, literally, even if it's just some fruits and vegetables in the backyard, you may want to start your own garden. Everybody may not have enough land for a whole farm. And I grew up, and especially when my grandmother was alive, there would be times when she would say what she wanted to eat, and we would go to the field and we would pick it. Chicken plants, eggs are $18,000. Please know, like, some of this is not going to return back to pre-inflation prices. And we should be concerned about the things that we no longer have access to in terms of administration because of other cuts that have come and other executive orders in terms of what information certain entities can give us. Grow your own fruits and vegetables if you can. If you don't have space in your yard to put a traditional garden in the ground, do planter boxes. Do like we're doing at Hay, connecting yards with neighbors and utilizing the space that will be a benefit to all of us. Um, Start by just growing some herbs in your windowsill. Start small if you can. Visit farms and buy your meat there. If you're here in Atlanta, there's a great Black-owned resource, a Brownite, right, from Morris Brown College, Wayne Swanson and his family. Go. You can get whole cuts of beef, right, to last for a very long time. This is now the time for us to be more intentional about how we're spending our dollars, where we're spending them, and what we're doing with them. Because there's going to be a time where we're going to have to support our own. And we can only support each other if we have the resources to be able to do so. So that's my little soapbox. I will end there. I will get on my own personal page and get a little more in detail about those things. But pay attention. Be mindful of what you're consuming in terms of media, because it's a lot and it can weigh you down. But we have to be aware of what's going on. But no, that organizations like ours and many others that are working with youth, that are more susceptible and have more access to gun violence in their communities. The fact that we are providing violence intervention and violence prevention in any shape, form, or fashion can be seen by the federal government at this time as infringing upon the Second Amendment rights of others. So just know that there's a lot of change that's going to be coming to a lot of us, and we have to be vigilant. So thanks so much.